I just want to read off the senators who have signed this bill. We are past, and supposedly it was March 8th, if I'm not mistaken, that the administration, and double check on this, the administration came out and said something, I think it was like this last week of February, we're given a deadline, and I believe it was before Ramadan, for the Israeli government to send a letter attesting that they are in compliance with U.S. law, which says it bars military aid from going to any country that blocks humanitarian aid. And I think we're past that deadline. This is standing law. It's part of the Foreign Assistance Act. They are, Bernie Sanders is the independent. There are 7 Democrats. The letter was written by Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland. It's written by Jeff Merkley of Oregon. It is signed by Mazi Hirono of Hawaii, Peter Welch of Vermont, Tina Smith of Minnesota. That's 5. Missing 2 more. Van Hollen, I said. Don't see who the other 2 senators are. I wouldn't be surprised if Kane was one of them, to be honest with you. But this is the beginning of, this pushback from the senators.
It's also Elizabeth Warren and Ben Ray Lujan of New Mexico.
Okay, so I guess it wasn't Kane. Warren and Ray Lujan. Meanwhile, in addressing the Senate Select Intelligence Committee, the Office of Director of National Intelligence head, Avril Haines, basically testifies to one of the most obvious dynamics that anyone who has ever spent 5 minutes in reading a book or a report or paying attention to history would understand about the implications of mass killing of civilians of an occupied people. Here is Avril Haines.
This crisis in Gaza is a stark example of how regional developments have the potential for broader and even global implications.
Pause it for 1 second. We should also say, this crisis in Gaza is a very weird phrasing for it. I should just remind people, aliens did not land and do this. Go ahead.
This crisis in Gaza is a stark example of how regional developments have the potential for broader and even global implications. Now, having lasted for more than 5 months, the Gaza conflict has roiled the Middle East with renewed instability, presenting new security paradigms and humanitarian challenges while pulling in a range of actors. The conflict has prompted new dynamics, even as it has entrenched old ones. We continue to assess that Hezbollah and Iran do not want to cause an escalation of the conflict that pulls us or them into a full-out war. Yet the Houthis entered the war and were willing to do so without Iran acting first, becoming one of the most aggressive actors in the conflict. And the Iranian-aligned militia groups in Iraq and Syria that have been attacking our forces and have been more focused on the United States than Israel, using the conflict as an opportunity to pursue their own agenda. Moreover, the crisis has galvanized violence by a range of actors around the world, and while it is too early to tell, it is likely that the Gaza conflict will have a generational impact on terrorism. Both al-Qaeda and ISIS, inspired by Hamas, have directed supporters to conduct attacks against Israeli and U.S. interests, and we have seen how it is inspiring individuals to conduct acts of anti-Semitism and Islamophobic terror worldwide.
I mean, this is stunning. We just finished a 20-year forever war in Afghanistan and Iraq. 21 for Afghanistan, maybe. Iraq, theoretically, a little bit less. That was supposedly a global war on terror. And now we're having testimony from the chief of intelligence in our country saying, we're reigniting it. We're reigniting a new 20-year period of this. And I mean, what is the U.S. strategic interest in continuing to support this slaughter in Gaza? How can anybody make that case whatsoever? What is the value of an ally that only creates more war for us, that only creates less stability for us, that only creates more insecurity for us, never mind themselves? And as a Jew, I'm being told that I am not, by the President of the United States, that I'm not safe without Israel. Well, he should check with his own director of intelligence, who just said that anti-Semitism is on the rise because of what Israel is doing. I mean, you don't need to be a human being with any sense of humanity to understand that this is a complete disaster. It would be better if you were, but if you cannot bring yourself to perceive Palestinians as human beings, if you cannot bring yourself to perceive that they are both worthy of, never mind, food and water and sovereignty and some type of, national identity or participation in a free society or a democratic society or remotely close to democratic society. If you can't bring yourself to that, then just look at the clear implications for U.S. security and national security interests. I mean, Lloyd Austin was out there 4 months ago in December going like, hey, it's pretty well settled that you can win the battle but lose the war. You're just going to create more anger, more animosity. You're worried about terror groups. What other option is being presented to people?
This reminds me, talking with Robbie Martin about Project for New American Century later tonight on Left Reckoning, and like to hear Ladine and like those type of guys talk about, well, yeah, we're not meant to be here for stability. We're a revolutionary actor in the world, and you actually look at those guys' connections, and they're tied to arms traders and Raytheon and all those sorts of stuff. So those people are going to be served by this. Oh,
well, their whole, and I think I still have that folder from when I went up and talked about the PNAC in February of 2022. Of 2003, right before shock and awe. And their whole fundamental vision for the New World Order was the U.S. as a hyperpower, just basically managing low-level conflicts around the world. And if everybody's fighting, nobody's going to gang up together and fight us, was the theory. And of course, yeah, we'll sell the arms, but funny thing happened on the way to Iraq, or I should say on the way back. We are clearly no longer the hyperpower that that these people dreamed of. But we had Ilan Pappy on this program months ago saying, like, when has Israel ever been helpful from a security standpoint? And I think that, I'm sure there is stuff that the U.S. national security apparatus perceives as being very helpful in terms of Israel. And maybe there's a beachhead.
Disrupting Middle East.
This is not, by any stretch of the imagination, helping on any metric whatsoever.
No, I think this is military, like, profit stuff.
Totally.
We're not thinking about security or any of that stuff.
Totally.